Yeah. Family, y'all. Just keep it tight, keep it tight, keep it tight. Oh, right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Here we go, here we go. That's right.
What are the different vocations of the ordained ministry within the Catholic Church in general, which applies to the ACCUS? Well, the three that we have that are part of the progression, so to speak, in holy orders is the diaconate, which is the service role, which for all intensive purposes is the first layer of ordained ministry. At that level, one gets to proclaim the gospel, gets to preach, can marry, can do funerals, preside at Eucharist without a priest, meaning that they have the opportunity to distribute Holy Communion and fill in for the priest without the Eucharistic rite. They visit the homebound. It's basically a very deeply rooted service industry, not industry, but service vocation, service-oriented ministry. The next layer is the actual priesthood, where one then, at that level of ordination, now is given and granted the opportunity to actually preside at Mass, consecrate the Holy Eucharist, hear confessions, absolve sins, and basically do all of the 7 sacraments. The only exception to that is confirmation. They need the dispensation from the bishop, but they can do them if the bishop gives them the authority to do so. So, as you can see, you start at the diaconate, you have some ministry. At the next level, you get more. And finally, the last level of holy order is a full ordination to the priesthood is the bishop, the episcopacy. And in that case, the bishop actually has the fullness of the priesthood, which allows him to confect all 7 sacraments, including the confirmation, and also is the spiritual head of a community. It's generally one who's elected by their community and peers to be able to be of service to everyone. What is in the true sense of the episcopacy and being a bishop is that he can't be everywhere, or she. So in this instance, that bishop goes and ordains priests and in turn deacons to work on behalf of his name or her name throughout the communities that are part of their jurisdiction. So in my case, we have a number of priests and some deacons throughout the country who go out and serve those particular areas in my name, working on my behalf. So those are the main ministries within the Catholic Church, which also apply to the American Catholic Church in the United States. How do you know if you are called to any one of those ministries? Well, everybody's journey is different. Mine began as a young child to a certain degree and was affirmed later in life. Some people know right away, others find out later. But if you're called to God in a way that others aren't, if you've got a deep prayer life, a very spiritual person, or one who just wants to serve people and has an unconditional love and opening to be there for everyone and help them along, you probably have the basic seeds to move forward and nurture that. Everyone has to start somewhere, and sometimes they need some encouragement. So if you think you might have that, you should go to one of our ACCUS people and maybe talk to them or email them or find out and ask questions where you might feel you're called to go. That's probably your best bet. If there's no one locally, well then there's nothing wrong to go and seek out some local help. I'm not opposed for you to check out what the Roman Church does, because in the liturgical side of things, that's what we do. There's no different. But if you're called and feel more inclusive, then once you see what's there, then you want to contact one of us, because we're going to be able to help you fulfill what it is that you're called to do. Well, the first step is to go to our website, www.accus.us. And from the main page, on the left side of the banner, there's a vocations tab, or vocations line. You go ahead and click on that, and it brings up the vocation information for our organization. And from there you can see what the application process is. In all of this, the first step really is to contact our vocations director. And in doing so, that individual will steer you in the right direction with the paperwork and give you some insight as to how you want to make this all work for you and how it comes to be. From there, that application process goes on to a committee, who then, as part of that process, there'll be some interviews and checks and balances to be sure that you're a good fit for our organization. And at that point, then that application process, I get a recommendation from the vocations committee, and from there I make the final call as to whether or not accepted into candidacy. And that is basically how that process works. It does take some time. You need to be patient, and with anything that we do in the church, patience is definitely a virtue, and you need to have that in your background. That's basically open to just about everyone. And why I say that, it is open to everyone. But in order to facilitate a more swifter process for an individual, we would prefer to see people who've been confirmed Catholic. Doesn't have to be confirmed in Roman Catholic circles. As long as you have a confirmation certificate from a Catholic jurisdiction, that will help you along greatly. However, if you come from a Protestant background, that shouldn't deter you, because then what we can do is it'll just add one more step to your journey. We'll just have to put you through the RCIA process, which is the Rite of Christian Initiation for adults, and that basically means we will do an adult confirmation when you're ready. And then from there we pick up with the same application process as anyone else. But anyone can apply. Male, female, gay, straight, everyone who's one of God's people is more than welcome to apply and be a part of the American Catholic Church in the United States. If you have in your heart the desire to serve all of God's people and to be able to work in an organization that you can work in an authoritative, and what I mean by that is we do have levels of people that you work. It's like any other company. You have a manager and so forth and so forth. If you're able to work in that type of a corporate environment, but have that desire to serve everyone in God's population, then that's kind of where we're looking for. That's the root of what we really need to start with. We can mold some things in people, but some of those personality traits that make us who we are, some people just aren't a natural fit, and that's okay. There are other places that you can go to. But what we look for in our organization is people with that infatuation for unconditional love, and to be able to serve those people that are generally marginalized and outside of the normal borders of other churches. Those who might not be a good fit, well, I never want to say there's bad fits, but they're people, like I said earlier, if you don't have a ability to work in the authoritative realm, or meaning you can't report to somebody who's going to give you instructions and orders, so to speak, then that's not going to work. We definitely have to work in an environment where you're a self-starter and one who can work on their own without a lot of extra guidance, because we're very spread out throughout this organization, and we're not in a position at this time where we can have direct mentorship, so to speak. Some areas you can, but most of our people, that's not a luxury we have. Some of our red flags we usually see are people who just can't adhere and see that all of God's people are all equal. We've got to have the ability to see everyone in the same light, just as God sees us. And if that's something that an individual shows on their application, then they're not a good fit for us. So it's not something that shouldn't stop you from pursuing your vocation, but it just means you can't be part of the American Catholic Church in the United States. But overall, there's more good than there is bad. And I don't like to always dwell on the negative, but just your basic grounding and how you feel overall about service is really what's going to make you move forward. What's our formation process like in the American Catholic Church in the United States? That's separate from the application process. That formation process begins during application, but also once you get accepted, then there's that spiritual enrichment and the ability to start deepening your awareness for being one of God's ministers. Being a priest and a deacon is completely around the service aspect, and you need to be closer to God so you can know exactly what it is that He sees through our eyes. So in order to open ourselves up to that, there's some training and giving you some tools so that you can be able to open yourself up both in spiritual nature and as well as your physical nature. In order to do that competently, you've got to be able to disconnect and unplug from the wired world. Our secular world has gone very high-tech lately, and in order to ground yourself spiritually and mentally, you need to unplug once in a while. And part of prayer life and finding oneself and getting grounded closer to God is being able to just turn that all off once in a while. And once you open yourself up and let your senses take over, then you're going to be able to feel and see God in a whole different way. In the educational aspect of things, depending on how much you had prior to your application, you may need to supplement some of that. One of the goals we have is to give you the same amount of education and tools that our Roman Catholic brothers have, so that way you can competently serve in ministry and be my direct emissary to serve all of God's people. So that's all part of the formation process as well. Basically, the biggest thing is to learn to open up, to see and smell and taste God for all of God's beauty and what it is that He is. Simply go to the website, go to www.accus.us and go through it. Spend some time in there. We have our entire history, what our articles of incorporation are, our mission statement, everything that it is, who we are and what we are is right there. Get an idea of who we are that way, and then if it still is calling out to you, then go to the vocations tab, look that information up, contact our vocations director, and get the process rolling. If you still have questions, most of our clergy, all of our clergy in fact, have their email addresses on the website. Go ahead and reach out to one of them. Let them get in touch with them and let them tell you their side of the story, and see what they believe and what they got, what drew them into the organization. It doesn't hurt to inquire. It doesn't hurt to find out what it is you're going to do, because once you take this step and start moving in it, your life will change forever. And you got to be sure that what you're doing is what exactly is your heart is telling you to do. You need to be sure with all of your might and all of your love and all of your heart that this is what you want to do. Now, if you happen to already be an ordained member of the clergy who comes from a different Catholic jurisdiction and you're interested in incarnating into the American Catholic Church in the United States, what's that process? It's really no different. You still need to apply through our vocations department and go through the same exact process as if you were somebody who hadn't been ordained in any level of ministry. The reason for that is we are different than the Roman Catholic Church. We are different than some of our other denominations and jurisdictions, and we want to make sure you're getting into the right jurisdiction for you, that you're the right fit. And in doing that, then we can make all the evaluations necessary and let you know where you stand within the group. The difference is if once you're accepted, then you're just incarnated and you would not be reordained in any way, shape, or form. You get your office that you had right away. The exception to all of that is the bishops, the episcopacy. There's a more rigorous process around that, and it's one that we don't have time for here, but just know that if any bishops are interested, that we have to go through a multi-year stage in getting to know who you are and what it's going to take, and to see if your mindset and your level of spirituality even fits within our organization. Bishops are people, again, who have the fullness of the priesthood, and when they're there, they have the ability to be the leaders of the organization. So in that case, we have to be absolutely sure that they will fit within the group. So again, if you have any questions or want to find out more, go to our website, www.accus.us, and contact any one of our clergy or even myself, and we'll be happy to let you know what your next step will be. May God give you grace, give you peace, and bless you now and always.